Welcome to part 2 of the Self-Help Center Guardianship Workshop. In this video, we will now review the forms you will be completing. We'll go over each form and explain to you why you're filling out each form and important parts of the form that need to be filled out. The contents of this video are intended for informational purposes only and do not constitute legal advice. If you need legal advice, please contact a private attorney. The forms listed in black are required when petitioning for a general guardianship in Santa Clara County. The forms listed in blue are additional forms needed if you are also petitioning for a temporary guardianship. If you are applying for a general guardianship only, you can skip to slide 14 of this video because we will be covering the temporary guardianship forms first. You should have these forms in front of you so you can follow along as you watch this video. We will start with Form GC-110P. This form is called the petition. It is the application to start the process of requesting temporary guardianship of the person. At top of this form, you will list the name of the child or children who you are seeking guardianship of. Full legal name should always be used on the forms. Item 1. You will list your name here as the petitioner. Note that this workshop is set up assuming that the proposed guardian is the petitioner. If there is another adult who wants to apply to be a guardian with you, this person is called a co-guardian, and you will list their name on line B underneath yours. A co-guardian is a person who will have the ability to make decisions about the child or children together with you. You both will have equal rights and responsibilities for the child or children if the guardianship is granted. Item 2. You will list your address, city, state, and phone number here. Item 3. If you are using the Self-Help Center form packets, then self-represented will be written here because you do not have an attorney and are representing yourself. On page 1, item 4, you will check the box, or the box may already be checked for you, to indicate I/we want to be the temporary guardian of the child or children named in item 6. On page 2, item 5, you will indicate how you are related to the child or children who are the subject of your guardianship request. Mark all relationships that apply to you and any co-guardians. For example, if you are a grandparent, you will need to mark whether you are the mother's mother, father's mother, mother's father, or father's father. If you are unrelated to the child or children, then mark that box and explain how you are connected to the child or children. For example, you might write family friend, neighbor, etc. Item 6. You will list each child's full name, current address, and current phone number here. If the child does not have their own phone number and is currently living with you, then list your phone number here. If there are more than 2 children, then mark the box at the bottom of item 6 and on a separate sheet of paper, list the additional children. Label the additional page at the top as Form GC-110P attachment 6, additional children. Item 7 asks why the children or children need a temporary guardian right now. If you are using our Self-Help Center form packet, you can leave this section blank because you will provide this information on a separate attachment form. If you are not using our form packet, then provide this information in the space provided, and, if you need additional room, continue on a separate page. You will want to explain in detail why the child needs a temporary guardian soon by listing specific facts or reasons. For example, writing "the child has a medical emergency" is vague. Providing more detail can be helpful. For example, you might write, "the child has many cavities and is in a lot of pain and needs emergency dental work as soon as possible." If you run out of room, mark the box at the bottom of this section and continue your explanation on a separate piece of paper. Label your extra piece of paper as GC-110P-item 7, reasons for appointment of temporary guardian at the top of the paper and attach it to the back of Form GC-110P. Page 3, Item 8 asks whether the child or children will go to the court hearing. On the Self-Help Center form pack, this is pre-marked to answer no. Note that in almost all cases, the child or children do not need to attend the court hearings. An exception is if the child is themselves the petitioner. Item 9. If you are asking for a temporary guardianship, then item 9 should be blank. On page 4 of GC-110P, read the information at the top of the form and then date, print, and sign your name at the bottom. All proposed guardians will need to sign this form. On this attachment to Form GC-110P Item 7, you will explain why the child or children need a temporary guardian. As a reminder, the process for getting a general guardianship takes about 10 weeks, but getting a temporary guardianship takes only about 3 weeks. Use this form to explain why the child needs a temporary guardian and why they cannot wait for the general guardianship to be granted in about 10 weeks. In the top section, fill in how long the child has been living with you most recently and how long in total the child has lived with you in their entire life. In the next section, check any and all boxes that apply to your situation. In the section below that, explain in detail why the child needs a guardian now and cannot wait for the general guardianship to be granted. For example, if they have an urgent medical issue, explain what that issue is, how it is affecting them, and how soon they need to see a doctor. Other common reasons why temporary guardianship might be needed include needing to obtain public benefits for the child or needing to add the child to your health insurance plan or Section 8 voucher. Form GC-140 is the order the judge will sign if you're appointed temporary guardian. In the caption at the top, fill out your name and contact information, the court's address, and the full legal name of the child or children. The same information will need to be listed on several of your other forms. On page 1, item 4A, list your name and the name of any other co-guardians along with your address and telephone numbers. Next to where it says guardianship of the person, list the name of the child or children you are asking to be temporary guardian of. Do not fill out item 4B. Item 4B is for guardianship of the estate, which is not something we help with in this workshop. Page 2, item 6A, check the box stating bond is not required. The rest of Form GC-140 should be left blank except for the caption at the top, where you will write the name of the child or children. The next form is GC-150. This form is called the Letters of Temporary Guardianship. For item 1, in the first blank space, write your name and the name of any co-guardians. Underneath, in the second blank space, write the name of the child or children you are asking to be appointed guardian of. Also check the guardian and person boxes. Read through the top of page 2. Then in the middle of the page, each proposed guardian will date, print, and sign their names. Also fill in the city and state where you sign this form. All the forms we have reviewed up until now have been to request a temporary guardianship of the person. We will now review the forms to start a general guardianship of the person. You will need all the following forms whether you are applying for a temporary and general guardianship or whether you are applying for a general guardianship only. We will start with Form GC-210P. This form is the petition, which is the application to start the process of filing for general guardianship of the person. At the top of this form, you will list the full legal name of the child or children who you are trying to obtain guardianship of. Remember to write the names exactly the same on all your forms. In item 1, you will write your name. If there is another adult applying to be guardian with you, you will list their name in item 1B underneath your name. You and this other person will be called co-guardians, and will each have the same rights and responsibilities for the child or children if the guardianship is granted. In item 2, list your address and phone number. Skip item 3 or write self-represented. For item 4, check the box, or the box may already be checked for you to indicate I/we want to be the guardian of the child or children named in item 6. On page 2 of Form GC-210P, item 5, check box A or B depending on whether you are related to the child or not. Also, check box C if you have been nominated to be guardian by one or both of the child's parents, for example, in the parent's estate plan. If you check box 5B, then you will also complete item 6, otherwise you can skip this item. If one of the child's parents is deceased and in their estate plan nominated someone besides you to be the child's guardian, fill out item 7. Otherwise, leave this blank. For item 8 on page 2, you will list each child who you are proposing to obtain guardianship of. List their first, middle, and last names and birth dates. On page 3 of Form GC-210P item 9, you will explain why it is necessary and convenient for you to have guardianship over the child or children. In other words, why is it best for this child to live with you and have you be their guardian? Provide as much detail as you can. If you need more room, mark the box at the bottom of this item and continue your explanation on a separate piece of paper. Label the top of the separate piece of paper as Attachment 9: Need for Guardian and attach it to the back of Form GC-210P. If you believe you will have difficulty serving one or more people who are entitled to notice, then fill out item 10B and explain what efforts you have made to try to locate them. The people you have to give notice to include the child if they're 12 or older, their parents, their grandparents, and any siblings of the child who are 12 and older. Other relatives, such as younger siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, and great-grandparents, do not have to be given notice. We'll explain more about the concepts of notice and who are required to be served in Part 3 of our workshop series. On page 4 of GC-210P, you will date, print, and sign your name at the bottom of the form. We are now moving on to Form GC-210CA. This is the Child Information Attachment Form, which gives the court more information about each child you are asking to obtain guardianship for. You'll need one of these forms for each child. So, for example, if you're asking to obtain guardianship for 3 children, you'll need to fill out 3 of these forms, one for each child. Do not write all the child's information together on one form. Item 1C relates to a law called the Indian Child Welfare Act. This law requires that you, as the petitioner, look into whether the child has or may have any Native American ancestry, if you do not already know the answer. You will check the first box in Item 1C once you have made this inquiry, and will also complete an EQA attachment form, which we'll go over in a later slide. In Item 1A and B, fill out the child's first, middle, and last name, their birth date, and their address. If you are not able to make this inquiry into the child's possible Native American ancestry due to the child's parents being unavailable or deceased, then you will check the second box in Item 1C. At the bottom of page 1, for Item 1E, you will indicate whether the child is receiving any public benefits such as Social Security or Medi-Cal. For Item 1F, list who currently has legal custody of the child or children. If there are no specific court orders in place, then generally it's the child's parents who have custody. In Item 1G, write the name and address of the person who the child is currently living with, if the child is not with their parents or other person who has legal custody. If the child is living in your home now, then you will write your name and address here. In Item 1H on page 2, you will provide the details of any existing court cases involving the child that you are aware of. In Item 2 on page 2 of Form GC-210CA, you will write the names and addresses of the child's parents, grandparents, and siblings. If you do not know a particular relative's name, write unknown name. If you do not know their address, write unknown address. For the siblings, also write each sibling's age or date of birth next to their name. If a particular relative has passed away, write deceased in the space for their home address. On page 3, Item 2, list additional individuals as applicable. In Item 3, answer questions about you, the proposed guardian, and the proposed co-guardian if there is one. In Item 4, explain why it is in the child's best interest to have a guardian. Be as specific as possible in your answer. For example, you might write, Hermione needs a guardian because her parents are both living overseas and we do not know when they will return home. Without Hermione's parents around, she is unable to be enrolled in school and is unable to go to the doctor when she is sick. If you need additional room, check the box at the bottom of this item and attach a separate sheet of paper, labeling it as Attachment 4 to GC-210CA. On page 4 in Item 5, you will explain why you in particular are the best person to be the child's guardian. Be as specific as possible. For instance, writing, it would be in the best interest of the child to appoint me as guardian because I am the child's aunt and I can take care of her, does not give the judge much insight as to why you would be the best guardian. Instead, write something like, it would be in the best interest of the child to appoint me as guardian because I am the child's aunt and have been involved in her whole life since birth. I came over to the mother's house almost every day to help care for the child, including feeding her, playing with her, and taking her to school. I am also the person who takes her to doctor's appointments, and I help her with homework. The second statement is more specific and will help the judge understand why you, and not some other person, is the best person to care for the child. Fill out Item 6B if it applies. Otherwise, leave this item blank. Leave Item 7 blank if you are the person wanting to be guardian and are starting this case. The next form is ICWA-010A, the Indian Child Inquiry Attachment. On this form, you will indicate whether you have or have not yet inquired as to the child's potential Indian ancestry, and, if you have made inquiries, who you spoke to and what you learned. If the child does have Native American ancestry, there are other steps you will need to complete. We will not cover these additional steps in this workshop here. If you have questions or think ICWA might apply to the child in question, please contact the Self-Help Center for additional guidance. Date, print, and sign your name at the bottom after completing this form. On Form FL-105/GC-120, you will indicate where and with whom the child has lived for the last 5 years, or, if the child is younger than 5 years, since birth. In Item 3, you will list how many children are subject to the current proceedings. Below that, in Item 3A, you will list the first child's name, place of birth, date of birth, and sex. In the rows below that, list the child's residential history, starting with the most recent location where they have lived and working your way backwards. If there is more than one child, you will list the second child's information in Item 3B. If that child's residential history is the same as for the first child, then check the box beneath the child's name to indicate this. If the child's information is different, then fill out the rows beneath with the second child's name and information. If you need more space to write the child or children's addresses, check box 3C and write the additional information on a blank sheet of paper. If there are more than 2 children you are asking to be guardian of, then mark box 3D in attachment form FL-105A/GC-120A to list the additional children. You can obtain this attachment from a website, courts.ca.gov/forms. On page 2 of Form FL-105/GC-120, Item 4, list any related court cases involving the child or children that you are aware of. In Item 5, if there are any domestic violence restraining orders or criminal protective orders in place involving the child, list that information here and attach a copy of the order if you have it. Also, answer Item 6 as to whether there is anyone else who is not a party to this case who has physical custody of the child or who claims to have custody or visitation rights. Print, sign, and date the form at the bottom of page 2. The next form in your packet is GC-211. You may or may not be submitting this form depending on the particular circumstances of your situation. Leave Section 1 on this form blank. This section only needs to be filled out if the petitioner is proposing another person to be guardian. Sections 2 and 3, titled Nomination of Guardian, should be filled out by either or both if they are nominating you to be the child's guardian. Otherwise, these sections should be left blank. Section 4 of Form GC-211, titled Consent to be appointed of guardian and waiver of notice, may be filled out if any of the persons who you are required to serve tell you that they consent to the guardianship and are willing to waive their right to receive notice of the proceedings. As you will learn in Part 3 of this video workshop, you are required to serve the child if they are over age 12, the parents, the grandparents, and any siblings over the age of 12. As an alternative to serving any or all of these persons, you can have one or more of these individuals sign Section 4 of this form. If you need more space for additional individuals to sign, you can attach another copy of this form. Note that you can also submit this form or additional copies of this form later in the process, after you have filed your forms to start the case. Form GC-020 is the Notice of Hearing for the Temporary Guardianship. This form tells the parties and those individuals entitled to notice when the hearing will be on your petition for temporary guardianship. For Item 1, list your name and the name of any proposed co-guardian here. You can leave page 2 of Form GC-020 blank for now, except for the caption at the top. The rest of this form will be completed later when you get to the service step of the guardianship process. We'll explain the concept of service in Part 3 of this workshop. Form GC-020 is the Notice of Hearing for the Temporary Guardianship. This form tells the parties and those individuals entitled to notice when the hearing will be on your petition for temporary guardianship. For Item 1, list your name and the name of any proposed co-guardian here. You can leave page 2 of Form GC-020 blank for now, except for the caption at the top. The rest of this form will be completed later when you get to the service step of the guardianship process. We'll explain the concept of service in Part 3 of this workshop. On page 2 of GC-020, you will list the names and addresses of all individuals who will need to be served by mail. This includes the child's maternal and paternal grandparents and any siblings over the age of 12, including half-siblings. Do not fill out the rest of this form. This will be completed later, after you file your forms, when you get to the service step of the process. If you need more room, you can attach optional form GC-020MA. Form GC-020 is the Notice of Hearing for the Temporary Guardianship. This form tells the parties and those individuals entitled to notice when the hearing will be on your petition for temporary guardianship. For item 1, list your name and the name of any proposed co-guardian here. You can leave page 2 of Form GC-020 blank for now, except for the caption at the top. The rest of this form will be completed later when you get to the service step of the guardianship process. We'll explain the concept of service in part 3 of this workshop.
The next page is GC-020P. On this page, you will list the names and addresses of all individuals who will need to be personally served. This includes the child's mother and father, the child themselves if they are over the age 12 and not the petitioner, and the current legal guardian, if any. The next form is second copy of Form GC-020. This version of the form is the notice of hearing for the general guardianship. This form tells the parties and those individuals entitled to notice when the hearing will be on your petition for general guardianship. You will fill out this form and the GC-020P form that follows in the same way that you filled out the previous GC-020.
The next form is GC-240. This is the order the judge will sign if you are appointed a general guardian of the child. In item 1C, you will list your name as petitioner as well as the name for any proposed co-guardian. For item 3, make sure the outside box is marked and the person box is marked. If you are filing for both temporary guardianship and general guardianship, this form will look familiar because you filled out a similar form earlier in your packet. The form that is earlier in your packet is GC-140, which is the order appointing you temporary guardian, while this form, GC-240, is the order for appointing you general guardian. For item 8A on page 2 of Form GC-240, you will list your full legal name and the name of any proposed co-guardian along with your address and telephone number. Next to where it says guardianship of the person, you'll write the names of the child or children you are asking to be guardian of. Be careful not to list this information on item 8B. Section 8B is for guardianship of the estate, which is not something we help with in this workshop. The next form in your packet is GC-250. This form is called the Letters of Guardianship and it will be issued by the clerk's office after you are appointed the general guardian. For item 1, write your name and the name of any proposed guardian and on the line underneath write the name of the child or children you are asking to be appointed guardian of. Read through page 2 of this form, then print and sign your name in the middle of the page. Make sure to also put the date and the location where you are signing in the spaces provided. If you are petitioning with someone else to be co-guardians, you will both sign this form. As with previous form we went over, this form may look familiar. It is very similar to GC-150 that is earlier in your packet. That earlier form is the letters of temporary guardianship, while this form is the letters of general guardianship. The next set of forms are a series of confidential forms which are used by the court to conduct a background check and investigation. These forms are confidential and will be viewable only by court staff. These forms will not get served on anyone. Form PB-4003-2A is the cover sheet for the next several forms. The only thing you will need to fill out here is the child or children's names in the caption. Form GC-212 is a confidential screening form. Each petitioner must fill out their own Form GC-212. This form will be used to assist the court in its background check and investigation. You'll need to answer all the questions. If you answered yes to any of the items, you will need to provide more detail about that item on a separate attachment form. Use a blank page and label it as Attachment to Form GC-212. Then for each item you answered yes to, write your explanation. You will want to provide as much detail as you can. It is best to be as transparent and upfront as possible about any issues in your past. Form PB-4014 is an authorization for release of information. By signing this form, you are consenting to information about yourself being released to the court as part of the background check and investigation. This information could include your school records, counseling records, probation records, public and private records, summaries of medical and psychological records, and anything else that could help the court in its investigation. Form GC-248 is the Duties of Guardian form. You should read this entire form carefully because it explains what your duties will be as guardian of the person. On page 7 of this form, you and any proposed co-guardian will print, sign, and date this form. The next form is PB-4005, which is a questionnaire asking for additional information about the parties for purposes of the court investigation. You'll fill out all sections of this form. You should answer the questions as best you can. If in doubt about whether to reveal information, you should err on the side of caution and disclose it. On page 2 of Form PB-4005, continue to answer all the questions here. On page 3 of Form PB-4005, you will need to list the name and information for every other person over the age of 18 who lives in your home. Then date and sign this form on the bottom of page 3. The next two forms are fee waiver forms. The filing fee to file a guardianship petition is $435, plus there will be a court investigation fee of around $900. If you cannot afford these fees, you can apply for a fee waiver by completing the remaining two forms in your packet. If you do not need a fee waiver, then you can skip these two forms. The two fee waiver forms are FW-001-GC and FW-003-GC. You will need one set of these forms for each child listed in your guardianship petition. For example, if you are asking to be guardian of 3 children, then you will need to fill out 3 of each of these two forms. On page 1 of Form FW-001-GC, you will fill out your name, address, and telephone number. If there are 2 petitioners, you'll list both of your names and other information on the same form. On item 3, you will fill out the child's name, address, telephone number, and their age and birth date. On page 2 of Form FW-001-GC, in item 8A, check the boxes for any government benefits that the child receives. On the line below this, if the child has no income, then write "Minor's income is 0." If you are using a self-help center form packet, this will be pre-filled out. If the minor does have an income, such as from a part-time job, then cross out this language and instead check box 8B if the minor's income is below the amounts listed. If their income is above that amount, then check box 8C and fill out the indicated sections on page 4 of this form. The fee waiver is based on the minor's income, and because most minors have no income, most fee waivers are approved. In item 10, fill out information about the child's mom and dad here.
On page 2 of Form FW-001-GC, in item 8, you will check either box 8A, 8B, or 8C as follows. If the minor receives any government benefits, check box A and indicate which benefits the minor receives. If you checked 8A, then leave 8B and 8C blank. Otherwise, review the information in item 8B and check this box if the minor's household income is below the amount listed for their household size. Do not include the proposed guardian's income. If the minor's household income is above the amount listed in 8B, then leave that item blank and instead check box 8C and fill out that item. Note that since the fee waiver is based primarily on the minor's income, and because most minors have no income, most fee waivers are approved. In item 10, fill out information about the child's mom and dad here. On page 3 of FW-001-GC, leave blank items 11 through 13. You only need to date, print, and sign your name. On page 4, if you checked box 8A on page 2, you can leave all items blank. If you checked box 8B, you must fill out items 14 through 16. And if you check box 8C, you must fill out all items.
The second fee waiver form is FW-003-GC. For item 1 on this form, fill out your information, and for item 3, fill out the minor's information. On both fee waiver forms, remember to write the name of the child on the top of each page. If the court grants your fee waiver request, it will be indicated on this form. If it is granted, this means you do not need to pay any of the court fees. We have now reached the end of Part 2 of this guardianship workshop. You will now watch Part 3 of the guardianship workshop to learn about what to do after you have finished filling out all of your forms.